This video is sponsored by DoubleCoin. Visit doublecointires.com for more information.
Electric trucks are no longer a thing of the future or a goal to aspire to. They're here. Fleets are ordering them, driving them on regular routes, and have been for years. With that being the case, we thought it was a good time to check in on the industry and ask, how's it going with electric trucks? This video is part one of a series in which we ask OEMs how their customers have responded to electric trucks, the good and the bad, the questions, and the answers. In this episode, I sat down with Katy Link, West Regional Sales Manager for Volvo Trucks North America. Let's go to the interview.
My name is Katy Link. I am the Volvo Trucks Electromobility Sales Manager for our West region. So I cover our entire West region as it pertains to zero-emission vehicles, which right now is battery electric. So I support our dealers and customers that are looking to make the transition into a battery electric vehicle.
All right, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Battery electric trucks have been out for a few years, so the purpose of this is just kind of to take the temperature of the industry, see how things are going. So what sort of feedback have you been hearing from fleets now that they've had these for a while?
So from a driver's perspective, we hear a lot of great feedback. It's definitely a more comfortable driving environment. You have less vibrations, it's quieter, and you have the same exact safety features on an EV as you do on a diesel truck. So from a driver's perspective, it's a really great transition. Obviously, it may be a little bit different from a fleet perspective. It's a little bit of a different way to manage your business when you're operating electric vehicles as opposed to diesels. You have to think about, a fueling, right, differently as opposed to a diesel truck. But all in all, again, from a driver's perspective, the feedback has been really great. And I think especially for those fleets that decided to, make the leap early on, they've been able to take advantage of the incentives and start on their infrastructure and charging. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later. We're finding that infrastructure and charging to deploy is taking quite some time depending on your utilities. And so, again, I think for those fleets that decided to dip their toes in a little bit earlier, they are able to better deploy these trucks, being able to have that charging in place.
Right, yeah. And that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot more steps involved than just, you get the car, you get the
Yes.
truck, you get the keys, and
Yes.
You're good to go.
Absolutely.
So when fleets are interested in electric trucks, what kind of questions do you get in advance? What do they want to know?
So we like to frame it that you have, 5 main barriers when looking at EV. You have the payload concerns, you have the range anxiety, you have the grid, you have infrastructure and charging, and then you have that upfront acquisition cost, which is higher than on a diesel truck. And so essentially the questions that we get from fleets is surrounding those 5 main barriers. And so our job as an OEM and with our certified electric dealers is to address those questions. But those are definitely the main ones. And on that note, when we're talking about the range, for example, we'll go through a route analysis with our fleets with what we call an electric performance generator, just to make sure that the truck is operationally feasible for their fleet. So again, we have different tools to address those questions because it is absolutely necessary to get those answered for the fleets to make sure that they're able to operate, their business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of, basically math involved, making sure that the value is there. And it comes from different places with an electric truck than it does from a diesel.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, looking back at what we call the pioneers or the innovators, those fleets that really jumped into it because they are interested in new technology or they have pretty aggressive sustainability goals, I think those conversations maybe looked a little bit different a few years ago when we first deployed EVs than what, the fleets that are now deploying those trucks now, look to be. But at the end of the day, the questions always surround, those five main hurdles that I just mentioned.
Right. And that ties into something else I wanted to ask. When you were first rolling out these trucks, how has the fleet reaction been compared to what you've expected? Where have things gone? How you thought they would, where have they gone differently?
Yeah, so I think from an expectations standpoint, we now, because we have learned a lot from deploying these vehicles over the last few years, we have over 5 million miles now on the VNR electric, which is a lot of miles. So, we've learned a lot with our EV dealers. And so I think now when we're talking with fleets, we definitely try to manage those expectations. Again, I mentioned the importance of doing a route analysis. So when they have expectation on range, we can actually put it into perspective. Like, these are your expectations, but based on what we just ran, based on your payloads, based on your speeds, based on the topography of the route, this is what the vehicle can do in your operations. And so I think it's really important to go in and manage those expectations. So then, when the fleet actually deploys these vehicles, you don't have a difference in expectations versus the reality. And along with that, we'll talk through incentives and grants. One of our largest EV dealers, Tech Equipment, has an in-house grant manager, for example, and a lot of these grants, the dealer's required to submit on behalf of the customer. So again, just making sure that we have a thorough process, because it is so different from purchasing a diesel, is really important to manage those expectations. I think when we look early on in the process, so if we go back into 2020, 2021, with the deployment of what we call the Lights project. So we deployed 30 phase 1 VNR electrics in Southern California, and those were deployed with those pioneers who were looking to begin the process of transitioning early to EV. And I think for those types of fleets, again, everyone understood that the technology was new, and that was the time to start collecting that data, to then be able to, when you're working with other fleets, to look back and say, this is the data that we have consolidated, and these are the lessons that we've learned, and this is how we believe, we can go to market fully with fleets.
I'm sure that was hugely important, having those early fleets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and so Volvo was the first to market when it comes to the battery electric vehicles, and there's definitely pros and cons to that. I think we like to see it more as a pro. Obviously, we're seeing some of the challenges first, right, but that means we can also address those challenges first, and then continue to innovate from there on out. But I think it was really important for us to take that step forward, both from a sustainability standpoint, because we have strong beliefs in that, but then also, again, from a fleet success standpoint too.
Right. And when you talk about those challenges, can you tell me what some of those were early on?
So early on, infrastructure and charging is always going to come up in the conversation. Right. We've all discovered that early on, that that's a really important component of the entire puzzle. And so, being able to support fleets with infrastructure and charging is important to us. So we have a team, we have Volvo Energy, who supports with some of the public charging side and some of the investments made there. And then also on our team, we have an infrastructure and charging manager to help go in and be on the ground, boots on the ground, with fleets, to be able to support whatever strategy for charging infrastructure is needed. But I think what makes it so challenging is there's different options. There's different options, based on whether a fleet owns their land. There's different options based on whether a fleet even wants to invest in owning their own charging and infrastructure. And so you really have to look at, the fleet's duty cycle, their business plan and where they see the investment in EV moving forward, and how do they want to address that. So that's definitely one of the biggest challenges that I think we're all still trying to solve. Volvo also is part of PACT, and was one of the founding members of PACT, and that group was designed to address solely the issue of infrastructure across North America. So, we're continuing to make investments in the technology, and honestly, we have a great truck. Our VNRE is built on the Volvo VNR diesel platform. So from that standpoint, and from drivers getting into an EV versus a diesel truck, Volvo, it's been smooth transition. But it is new technology, and so we're always addressing new software, and just trying to better wrap our arms around technology that's only been around now for the last couple of years, when you're in an industry that's been around for for decades. So but other than that, it's been a pretty incredible process to witness and work with fleets who are really committed to investing in sustainability.
Right, yeah. And that's a good point about, the lifespan of, electric trucks versus the industry as a whole. And, the infrastructure question, unfortunately not something that we can address just in our industry. It's much bigger than that.
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to go back really quickly to something that you mentioned earlier. You said that you do route planning and route mapping with prospective fleets. Are there particular kinds of routes that have turned out to be very well suited to this?
Yeah, so when we go into a conversation with a fleet who's looking at this technology, we tell them up front, this is technology for the shorter hauls, for the pickup and delivery, the beverage distribution. We have a lot of port and drayage trucks right now, and so definitely those shorter haul is where this truck excels in. Regenerative braking is a huge component of electric vehicles, and it's the same with our truck. And so certainly the routes where you can take advantage of regenerative braking, so the stop and go type of routes, is best for the VNRE and most electric vehicles, heavy duty right now.
So last question I had for you, as we look at the next few years of electric trucks, how do you see things improving and changing?
So we're definitely making a lot of investments at Volvo in terms of battery technology and just overall architecture of the vehicle. From a battery standpoint, we announced that we acquired Proterra, which is battery manufacturing plant, back in January. And so we definitely see that being an asset to us in terms of battery technology. We definitely see, more infrastructure being rolled out. There's a lot of charging depots that are opening now and, opening in the next few years to better support the fleets that maybe aren't ready to do behind the fence charging, or who want to do behind the fence charging, but it's delayed from a utility standpoint, or from any other type of delays. But overall, we're continuing to invest in our zero emission technology, be it on the battery electric side, be it on fuel cell electric. We have investments, and then also in our internal combustion engine with renewable fuel. So you said you had spent time at ACT Expo, and there was a pretty common theme amongst a lot of the OEMs, and it was partnership is the new leadership. And we definitely see that playing out in this space. We're going to continue to, foster the partnerships that we have to support, be it on the infrastructure side or on the technology side with the vehicle. So,
yeah, that was definitely something you heard a lot at the expo. That exact phrase, and it seems to be where things are moving. It's kind of a situation, especially when you look at that infrastructure side of things. You can't do it alone.
No. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's a huge investment for all parties involved, and I think we're on our way. I think we all wish that it would move a little bit faster, but again, we've developed some really great partnerships with some providers that we feel very confident in. So